Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out RoboQuest. Yes, I already checked this one out in my Steam Summer Sale, Summer Festival Demo Derby videos. But funnily enough, after the video that featured this game went out, the developers contacted me and were like, hey, here's a key for the closed alpha. You want to take a look at it? Sure, why not? It's pretty similar to the demo actually, except that it's got like double the content and a bunch of fixes going on. But honestly, they could release this in early access right now if they wanted to, because despite the fact that this is an alpha, it's really well done. It's actually extremely well optimized. It's got very little in the way of actual bugs going on. Like, the biggest thing that I ran into was an enemy that was permanently shielded, but considering that you don't have to worry too much about killing literally every enemy in this game, it doesn't really matter that much. So, there are some base upgrading things going on where you can get yourself new artifacts, make it so that you've got more to choose from when you start runs. Things along those lines, you know. I've bought them all because I've played this alpha for about 2 hours at the time of this video recording, and that was enough to unlock everything in the alpha, so that's a thing. But you've also got different difficulty settings and classes as well, which is, you know, good for the variety. But I'm not a fan of Recon, personally, because Recon feels more suited towards long-range combat, but unless you're constantly marking enemies, it gives you a bit of a disadvantage, mainly because trying to take out long-range enemies in this game is a bit weird, considering how you need to pick up their orbs for XP and special ability uses. So, yes, it's a bit weird in that sense. But anyway, this is RoboQuest. It is a single-player or co-op roguelite experience, first-person shooter, that brings back many memories of the Doom reboots. That's the first thing I think of when I play this game, just in relation to their speed. They're not as fast as the remakes, or as the Doom, you know, Doom 4 and Doom Eternal. But that's the first thing I think of, because they're pretty heavily focused on speed, maneuverability, and frequent weapon switching. And this is something I did notice when I was playing during the Steam Summer Festival Demo Derby, is that your weapons automatically reload when you put them away. You also get some extra maneuverability abilities. That's a bit of a weird thing to say, maneuverability abilities. But yes, you also get some extra maneuverability abilities when you play through the game. You've got a jetpack, you've got a double jump that you start out with, and you also have the ability to donk enemies on the head. You also have the ability to hop on things like grind rails and such like that. So, and with the projectiles moving as slowly as they do, and the heads-up display alerting you to enemies outside of your field of vision taking shots at you, it's basically your fault whenever you take a hit. And that I appreciate, because it legitimately feels very fair. Like, it honestly feels extremely fair whenever you get your shit kicked in by a bunch of dudes, because you went in and went straight into the middle of the group and just got shot from 4 directions. That's your fault, Sonny Jim. But yes, there's a bunch of different kinds of enemies, but they're all the same variation of enemy. Like, they're all the same kind of grey robots with red critical hit points. Admittedly, I'm not too big of a fan of that, and I hope they add some visual variety in later versions of the game. But there's still a fair few different types of enemies, and you're going to have to take them on in different ways. So, that's a good start. The turrets are a bit of a bitch. That's pretty much all I've got to say about the turrets. There are little robot dudes that run around and have the ability to just sneak up on you. The big ones have got like stun fields and big patterns that you really need to get out of the way of. There's no like just doing neat little dodges. And once you kill them, they drop these little orbs. And these orbs are your experience. They are also what charges your special abilities. Every class has a unique special ability, and these special abilities, in the case of the class that I'm playing in the footage right now, is a wrist-mounted rocket that does a bit of damage and some splash damage. The Recon has the ability to mark enemies, which will allow you to get their orbs immediately if you kill them, and I believe it also lets you do some extra damage. And the engineer, which you'll see in the second half of this video, will launch out a drone, which will take some damage for you and attack enemies back. And I think that class is a little bit overpowered because the regular mooks focus on the drone a bit too much, and the bosses don't focus on the drones at all. So all you need to do is put out a few drones and then dodge, and you'll win, basically. Because when I was playing against Diggy Mole, which is the first boss, when I spawned the drones, it just ignored them completely. So all I needed to do was spawn them, and then just run around, and I was basically going to win, which was nice. But yes, that needs to be fixed up, but at least all of the characters feel different because of this. When you are on recon, you're going to want to get some long-range weapons because you feel like you could use that marking ability to your advantage, and you don't need to worry about getting up close and personal to get the orbs. Meanwhile, for the other classes, you do. For the Guardian that I've got right now, you will, for the Guardian that you've got right now, that splash damage is really useful when you get close to a bunch of enemies. And you've also got the most powerful melee attack in the game, which can also be upgraded to be even more powerful, which is great. And then when you've got the guy who has the drone, you have a special melee attack that actually does shock damage that will cause enemies to freeze. And that class is also very well suited to elemental stuff. Because, of course, since it's a roguelite, it's got leveling up, and it's got perks. And these perks are relatively simple. There's nothing that's massively game-changing, a la specific items in the Binding of Isaac. But there's still some pretty good stuff going on there that let you focus on specific character builds. So you've got the ability to, say, add shock and explosions to bullet weapons, which you can then improve like the ammo count of your bullet weapons so that you've got ridiculously high damage on them that will not only freeze them but deal splash damage to enemies around them when they get shot. So there are a fair few different things along those lines. There are also improvements to your main abilities, like add an extra slot for the wrist-mounted mockets. Wrist-mounted mockets, good god me, you get the idea. But you do also have, every second level, a stat upgrade. So you've got armor, obviously, which is your health. And you've got 5 different colored abilities. And these 5 different colored abilities are red, blue, green, yellow, and purple. Purple is for your ability. It'll generally increase either the amount of damage it does or how long it lasts, in the case of the marking, I believe. But in the case of the other 4 are your weapon damages. So every weapon in the game, and there's a fair few of them, they're not proc gen a la Borderlands, but they do sometimes have like suffixes on them. They give you like a little bit of extra ability with them, although they do seem to be, they do appear to be like pre-applied. You'll see the same grenade launcher, the same flare gun I should say, not grenade launcher. You'll see the same flare gun with the same abilities all the time. You'll sometimes see the same pistol with the same like adds 2 to your red damage sort of thing. I wish there was a bit more variation on that front. But yes, all the different weapons in the game have different colors, and the damage on them is determined by your, I don't remember what they call them. There's little plug-in things that you get that increase 2 different colors at a time. So you might get 1 red and 1 blue, or you might get 3 green and 3 red, or you might get 3 purple and 3 red. So you need to determine what of these chips you're going to take along in order to give yourself the biggest advantage with the weapons that you might like. Now, me, I would tend to focus on assault damage the most, which is the red, because seriously, those dual shotguns and dual Uzis are some of the most satisfying weapons I've had the pleasure of using in a while. They just hit so well. But there are some other cool weapons too, like the snipers do a ridiculous amount of damage if you even have like a slight amount of power behind them. And the technology weapons are all interesting, like the gigantic blue beam or the ice launcher, which launches 3 area of effector balls that'll slow enemies down. They'll do things like that. And then you've got the yellow weapons, which are freaking flamethrowers, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, and they're just as powerful as you might expect from those particular kinds of weaponry. So the weapon variety is quite high, and they're all very satisfying to use. Again, I'm not that big of a fan of the precision weapons that fire over really long distances, because the orbs that drop from the enemies that you need for experience and special ability uses vanish really quickly. We're talking like a few seconds. So you need to be up close and personal if you want to get your hands on all of them. Which is why the class that has the marking ability is probably the best for the precision weapons, and for the other classes you should focus more on technology or assault than you should precision. But all of the weapons are still really satisfying to use. They have great animations. They even have like some really neat little details, like the taka you can see on top of the dual Uzis whenever they're firing. It's really satisfying to see that. There's some really nice little animations going on there. It's just really well, all the weapons are just really well put together. They're not like Borderlands, where you've got a million different guns, but they all feel exactly the same, thanks to the fact that they needed to make them all prop gen. No, they all feel like unique, interesting weapons to use. You've got 2 different kinds of longbows, which are fun to just get the drag ride on. There are some grenade launchers that are freaking lots of fun to use. The flamethrower gives you like this little extra bar on the health bar that shows you how much damage the burning is going to do, so you know when you can safely get off that enemy and move on to the next enemy. It's a really nice detail. It shows that they're really thinking about all of that. And some of these guns have some extra secondary fires as well. They're limited on the ammo, but they can often be like chained together in order to do a ton of damage, and enemies drop extra ammo pretty regularly. And as I said before, even for weapons that need to reload, like you've got weapons that like have cooldowns and they'll go away as you put the weapons on your back too, but if a weapon's on your back for long enough, it'll automatically reload. So the best way to go about playing this game is to get 3 weapons that you like and are confident with, and then just be constantly swapping between them when their ammo runs out, so that they'll reload while they're on your back, and you can just continue on with using them as you go. It's great. It legitimately keeps the pace of the game up. It makes it so that enemies are interesting, because in order to get like S ranks on the stages, which I'm surprisingly getting really good at, you'll need to be not only fast but accurate. So the best way to be good at this game is to be constantly swapping weaponry, constantly changing up your playstyle, and having at least a decent think, but not too much of a think about what weapons you want to carry around. Because again, the system that manages all this, which is that system of those cores that have like, 2 assault, 2 technology, or what have you. You don't have to spend too long thinking about it, and there's no over-the-top ammo management or anything. So you don't have to stop for 5 minutes to think to yourself, okay, if I take this core and this core, this weapon will be the most effective. No, you're back into the fight within 30 seconds or less. And as a result, the gameplay is fun, fast, frantic, and really enjoyable. It's a little bit easy on the default difficulties. I'd recommend, if you're even remotely skilled with first-person shooters, I'd recommend putting this straight on Heroes difficulty. You'll start unlocking extra like Heroes difficulties as you beat the game. As you will see at the end of this footage, beating Heroes difficulty unlocks Heroes 2. And I have played a couple of runs on Heroes 2, including the one that you're seeing right now, and I haven't managed to successfully win it. I'm probably going to stop playing this just so I don't wear out the content in the alpha, because, yeah, my main problem with this game is that the variety is a bit low. But, of course, that's to be expected when you're playing an alpha, but at the same time, there's very little in the way of environmental pieces. There's only 1 end boss per second area. The bosses only come up every second area. So, I'm hoping they'll at least add a couple more bosses to the earlier stages and not make us fight the same boss over and over again. I'm assuming that's just because it's an alpha, but what's here is still pretty good, although as I said, they're a bit easy if you just endlessly spawn drones. But yeah, that's my major problem with the game right now. Just add more, please. If that's my biggest problem with the game as it stands, it's probably doing really well for itself, and I'm I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Because it's legitimately fun. And even at the moment, it's well polished. Like, have you been paying attention to my frame rate counter in the top right? It's been doing really well for itself for an alpha. The optimization is just really well done, especially for an Unreal Engine 4 game, which can be a bit of a bitch about these sorts of things. It looks good. It's got plenty of PC graphics settings, all of the stuff that you would hope to be customizable in an Unreal Engine game. So a fair amount of options as well. Like, it's not very often you see a game on PC that starts out with a lowered crosshair, which is a bit weird. And lowered crosshairs is what they do on console games, by the way, in order to make them easier to play on a television. But you also have the ability to swap between the two crosshair types in the options menu, which again is just a bit weird that it's there, but it's nice that it's there. I'm not going to argue against it. The only major thing that's missing right now is an FOV slider. I don't know what the FOV is. I got used to it after a little bit, but it did make me feel a little bit weird in the beginning, so I'm guessing it's somewhere in the 80 to 90 range. Either way, they should add a FOV slider for customization purposes before they bring it into early access or whatever. But that shouldn't be too hard to do. There is also a story, but again, this is the alpha, it's not really all there. Basically, it's way in the future. You're a human, you have a robot friend, you beat the crap out of other robots. Don't really need much else in the way of story for a game like this, do ya? So yeah, so far, at least based on this alpha, RoboQuest is really well done. The gunplay is great. The action is great. It's full of high speed and high maneuverability gameplay. The guns all feel relatively unique. There's a fair amount of enemy variety so far. The only real downside is a lack of environment variety and a lack of bosses. But again, alpha, I'm willing to let them have the benefit of the doubt on that one. Hopefully they'll add more as they go along. Really enjoyable so far though. I'm about to get my shit kicked in this area. And then it'll go on to a second set of gameplay involving the drone class. So, yeah. Really enjoyable. When it comes out on early access, I highly recommend it. This is currently a closed alpha though, so me and like a few thousand other people probably have access to it at some point. I'm not going to claim to know the details about the alpha, but if you want to sign up for it, just Google RoboQuest game, and it'll be like the first website you see, and you'll be able to sign up for the closed alpha. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.